Hello, and welcome to Exit to Excel. This is the podcast about career strategy and navigating major transitions for mid career professionals who are ambitious, capable, and often overlooked. My name is Latanya. They call me LT, and I've sat on both sides of the table. As an HR business partner in corporate America for over 25 years, I have laid thousands of people off. And I've personally experienced four layoffs myself. So I understand what you're going through, and I also understand the mechanics and the decisions behind a lot of these things. If you're a longtime listener, then welcome back. Thank you for being here. And if this is your first time, then welcome. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next, and follow me on my social media at Exit to Excel on TikTok and Instagram, and send me a connection request on LinkedIn at Latanya Shaw. I share daily insights on navigating your career with strategy and not just effort. So let's get into today's episode because today's episode is all about you and your story. So maybe your story has been working just fine and it's been working just fine, or it was anyway, until suddenly it wasn't. So maybe you've been in your industry for 15, 20 years. You've built real competence, real expertise, you've built real relationships, and you know how to navigate in that world. And then something shifts, something happens, a layoff, a pivot, the market changes. And then you find yourself in a room where your experience doesn't quite translate the way it used to. Or maybe been doing the same work for so long that when you finally look up and you think about what's next, you realize that your entire introduction to yourself is about who you were and not actually what you are doing right now or who you are right now. This happens so many times for people who have been in the same role, even the same company for 10 and 15 years. They look up and the world has changed. And here's what I hear from a lot of people that I work with. I have all of this experience, but I feel like no one sees it the way that I do. And even with a very strong profile on LinkedIn, I'm invisible. So it is this gap, the gap between the story you're telling about yourself and how the market is actually reading you right now that we're going to talk about today. Because here's the thing, your personal brand didn't stop working because you're not valuable. It stopped working because the market moved on, but yet your story didn't move along with it. Now, let me break this down into what is actually happening. Most of us construct our personal identity over time, right? We get really good at something and we keep doing it. And we get more experience, we get credentials, we get promoted behind it, and it becomes something that we're known for. And that's valuable. It is absolutely valuable. But here's the pattern that I see, our personal identity becomes permanent. And we assume that the skills and the accomplishments and the titles that we have collected over the past 5 years are the things that should still define us today. But the market does not work that way. Think about it. The work is changing. The way we work is changing. Priorities are changing. The way that companies solve problems is different than it was even 2 years ago. I mean, just think about the impact of AI. And this isn't about AI, this is just the evolution of work. But things are changing. Yet, so many capable, accomplished people are leading with the same story and the same framing of what they bring that worked in a previous era. So, let me give you an example of, something that comes up constantly. Someone with deep operational expertise. Maybe they have spent the past 10 years making systems run smoothly, eliminating waste, getting things done efficiently. Real valuable, work. But when they're introducing themselves, they are leading with operational excellence. But you want to know what hiring managers are looking for? They're looking for change agents, innovation, agility, and they're not the same thing. So the frame does not match the moment, nor does it match the need. Or maybe you are someone who has deep domain expertise. You know everything about how things have always been done. So when you talk about yourself, you are talking about that depth and that specialization and being that go to person. But what is the market looking for? The market is now looking for someone who can work across domains, someone who can connect the dots, someone who can adapt. So what you are promoting as being, the expert and the go-to person can be viewed as a liability because you may be coming across as potentially being inflexible. So, why does this happen? It happens because for a very long time, what got us to where we are is the same thing that kept us there, right? It has given us longevity, it has given us the promotions. So, or has it even gotten us hired, right, in different markets? So, you could ride that same story, that same skill set, and that one identity for a very long career. But in today's market, that is not the reality anymore. Now, the second part of this pattern is harder to name, but it's real. There's something almost vulnerable about updating your story because your story has become a part of how you see yourself. So if you're not that operations person or that systems expert or even that HR business partner, then who are you? It almost feels risky to get away from that and to shift how you're framing what you do. And it can feel like you are erasing everything that you've ever built and you've ever done. So what do? We hold on to it even tighter. And instead of focusing on a reframing, we're focusing on changing keywords here and there, changing our headline. We keep leading with the same introduction, maybe shifting things around a little bit, the same positioning. And we hope that somehow the market will start to see us the same way we see ourselves, but it doesn't. And again, it's not because you're not valuable. It's because nobody is listening for that particular story anymore. So here is what changes when you shift your thinking. Your personal brand isn't about your past, it becomes about your relevance. So let me say that again because I want to make sure you don't miss it. Your personal brand isn't about your past, it is about your relevance. Your brand is not about a collection of everything you've ever accomplished, but it is how the market reads what you bring right now. And that's completely different thinking, but yet it is where a lot of people get stuck. Now, a lot of people think that updating your brand is changing your LinkedIn headline. It means erasing all of your experience. It doesn't mean either of those things. The headline is important, yes, but your experience is still relevant and it's real and it's valuable, but your experience is not your positioning. So let me give you an example with Apple. Now, when you think about Apple, the first thing that comes to your mind isn't the computer that was built in a garage in 1976. You may not even think about a phone or a MacBook. What you probably think about is innovation, design, and user experience. That is what Apple is known for, right? Now, they do have great products, but their brand is about those things. So they didn't erase their history, but what they did do is integrate it into something that was very relevant today, right now. And the same thing is true for you. Your 10 years of operational excellence didn't go anywhere, but it's how you position that experience. What problems do you solve? What possibilities it opens? That needs to reflect where you are and where the market is, not where you both were. So, how does this look strategically? I need for you to answer 3 questions, and you're not going to find them on your resume. The first question is, what is the actual work the market is looking for right now? Not what you're comfortable doing, what is actually being asked for in your field, in your industry, in your world? Question number 2, where does your experience genuinely intersect with that? Not where you think it should intersect, but where does it actually intersect? And then question number 3, how do you talk about that intersection in a way that makes sense to someone who's never met you before? Now, when you answer those questions honestly, something very interesting happens. Your story starts to come together. It gets more specific, and it becomes less about how many years of experience you have than it does about your relevance. And that is what gets people's attention. I've seen it happen many, many times. Someone who's struggling to position themselves, they're getting passed over, they're getting ghosted. They update how they frame their experience, not what they've done, but how they frame what they've done. And they start getting a completely different response. Now, that's the difference between your resume and a personal brand. Your resume is a historical document. It, documents and gives an outline of the things you've done. Your brand is your positioning statement, and it looks forward. So when you're updating your brand, you're not erasing your past. You're just translating it into language that means something relevant in this moment. Now, here's where the rubber hits the road, because updating your brand is not the same as changing your LinkedIn headline. This is about making a decision about how you're going to present yourself to the world. And that decision has consequences. Some of them good, some of them, quite honestly, a bit uncomfortable. But if you do this, if you actually sit down and figure out how the market is reading you right now and what the market actually needs and how you generally fit into that picture, something shifts. You're able to get very clear on who you are and what you need to focus on. And you no longer, apply for 20, 30 jobs a week, hoping to hear back on at least one. You're able to really hone in and start speaking directly to the people who are looking for what you have to offer and speak to them about the things that they care about. Now, that in and of itself is extremely powerful. And for a lot of people, it is a bit unsettling because it is admitting that everything that you've built, the things that you've done that have gotten you to where you are today, they might need to evolve a bit. And it means of letting go of, well, I have 25 years of experience in HR and being the most experienced person in the room, to because of my experience, I understand how to move this organization forward into the next chapter. Now, the people who refuse to do this, the people who refuse to evolve or make this shift, those who insist on making their brand about what they've done in the past, they don't disappear exactly. They are just, almost invisible in the market. They're still impressive. They still have great credentials, but no one is looking for what they're trying to sell. No one is looking for what they're advertising. But the people who do this successfully, who take the time to translate their experience into current relevance, they don't have to work as hard. They don't have to apply for 20 and 30 jobs. And they don't have to convince people that they're still valuable. Because when you have this positioning, people understand what you have to offer how it is relevant to their problems today. They're able to see it immediately. So the decision is, are you going to be defined by what you've built or what you're building? Because those things feel like they should be the same, but they're not always. And choosing between them is actually choosing between visibility and invisibility, momentum and friction, between being seen for what you've done and being seen for what you actually bring to the table right now. And it's not an easy decision, but it is the one thing that separates people who stay stuck in a transition versus those who are able to move through it and exit to excel. Now, if this is landing for you, if this makes sense to you, then comment below and let me know. But I want you to listen up because going through this process is not something you want to do in an afternoon. And it's not something you can do just by rewriting your LinkedIn headline. It's clarity about what the market is actually looking for, an honest assessment of where you generally fit, and then the confidence to speak about it simply. That kind of clarity, that usually requires real conversation. It requires someone who can see what you're not seeing about yourself, who can help you translate your experience into relevance, and who can challenge the stories you've been telling yourself all of this time about what you bring to the table. Now, that's exactly what we do in the Clarity to Confidence program, our strategic reset program. Week one is all about getting crystal clear on your actual value, your skill clusters, and exactly where you should focus next. We're not focusing on buzzwords or tweaking resumes or getting through the ATS system. Just you and your experience and what it actually means in the market. So I have a cohort going on right now, and we just went through this exercise last week. And I have an exercise that I have them go through that is extremely detailed. And when I demoed it to them, you could see the light bulb going off. But not only that, you could see a calmness come where it was like, oh, I can actually see the light at the end of at the end of the tunnel. And so they were chomping at the bit to get started with the exercise. And, I can't wait to, for them to see exactly where they should be focusing and how we're going to make that pivot to relevance. So if you are ready to move from being stuck to feeling clear, let's have a conversation. The link to my calendar is below. I give free 20-minute consultations, and we'll spend 20 minutes figuring out if the Clarity to Confidence program is for you. And even if it isn't, you'll leave the call with clear direction or clear information about your direction. Because you deserve to be seen for what you actually bring. And when your story is aligned with what's real and what's current, that happens so easily and so naturally. So thank you for joining, and I'll see you on the next episode of Exit to Excel.